Okay, we want to talk about what we have named jugular vein verses. These are single texts of scripture, maybe two verses at a time, which are very difficult for people to answer when they are of a certain point of view. And we're starting with this issue of the Sabbath. There are millions of Christians who insist on keeping the Sabbath day as a holy day. Some of them keep the holy days annually as well, the Feast of Tabernacles and the Feast of Weeks and the Day of Atonement. Others just keep the weekly Sabbath. And they insist on that because they say that the Sabbath is in the Ten Commandments and therefore must be still binding. The problem is that the jugular vein verse here, therefore don't let anyone judge you in regard to food and drink or in the matter of a festival or new moon or Sabbath day. These are a shadow in fact, skia in Greek, a shadow, singular, of what was to come, but the substance is the Messiah. The substance belongs to Messiah, or even simpler, the substance is the Messiah. The point is simply that both the holy days, the annual festivals, and the weekly Sabbath are described here as a shadow. So that's extremely hard for Sabbath keepers. Yes, they'll admit that the holy days annually are a shadow and they're not keeping them. But what do you do with the fact that it's the weekly Sabbath there that is also a shadow? There's a trio of observances here: weekly, annual, and monthly rest days, all three together. There's absolutely no distinction in Paul's mind between them. If you're going to keep the Sabbath day on Saturday, then you must keep the holy days annually, and you must keep the new moons equally. Nobody, I think, advocates keeping the new moons. They wouldn't know what to do with it, and it would give a very poor impression to your neighbors as you're seen there staring at the moon once a month. The easy solution to Colossians 2:16, 17 is that none of the calendar of Israel is binding on Christians at all, period. The whole thing is a single shadow. Don't let anybody tell you what to do or insist on food and drink regulations, or one of the trio, that's to say annual, weekly, and monthly. Don't let anybody tell you what to do, because these things, this trio of observances, annual, monthly, and weekly, are a single shadow which has been replaced by Jesus. The body belongs to Christ, and he is the one who is our Sabbath, is our holy day, and is our festival. Jesus is our Passover, Paul said there in 1 Corinthians 5, celebrating the Passover every single day, not just once a year. The Lord's Supper incident is not just a repeated Passover once a year. No, it was when they met in church that they celebrated the Lord's Supper. So all of that calendar of events has been replaced in the new covenant by Messiah himself, who is our Passover. So it's impossible, I think, for anybody honestly to deal with the fact that the annual, monthly, and weekly Sabbath, and that is singular in meaning there. Yes, we know the form is plural, but we also should know that often the plural form, it comes from the Aramaic savata, looks like a plural in Greek, and so there is actually a plural Sabbath there. But the meaning is a single Sabbath day. Even in the Ten Commandments, the fourth commandment refers to the one day in the week. It's a plural actually in the Greek Septuagint there, but that's because of the strange fact that Aramaic looks like a Greek plural, and so it came over as a Greek plural. But the meaning, as everybody knows, is a singular Sabbath day. That weekly Sabbath, monthly observance, and annual observance are a single shadow. It's a mistake to go back under those shadows, because you're going back under the old covenant in the letter. And that's what you don't want to do. You're losing the power and the energy and the clarity of Christ in your life if you allow anybody to tell you what to do in regard to that trio. And it doesn't say, don't let anybody tell you, but let the church tell you. That really is quite incoherent, by the way. No, don't let anybody at all tell you what to do. These things are a single shadow. What I would call some of the most distinguished of New Testament commentators, in this case, Dr. Henry Alford, if we suppose the divine obligation of Sabbath to have been recognized by Paul in any form, could he thus have spoken? I think the answer is clearly not. The obvious inference from his strain of arguing in Colossians 2:16, 17 is that Paul knew of no such obligation, but believed all times and days to be to the Christian strong in faith alike. So be free. First day of the week is Resurrection Sunday. It's the beginning of the new week, the 8th day. It's entirely appropriate for Christians to meet on that day. Not that Sunday is the Sabbath. It's not. It's not a transferred Sabbath. There is no weekly observance as Sabbath under the new covenant of the law of Messiah in the Spirit. And that's what we must all insist on.